I found an abandoned yacht. The food was still warm. We got the distress signal at 2:32 a.m. The signal came via an emergency position indicating radio beacon, EPIRB, registered a large yacht owned by a man named Daniel Owens. EPIRBs don't send any other information though, so we had no way of knowing what exactly happened. At least the weather's good, I said as we cut across the waves. Yeah, but kinda makes you wonder what happened, don't it? Bobby replied, hands gripping the wheel. I don't remember the last time we had an SOS without a storm. Who knows with these rich fucks, Kim replied, spitting over the side. They do all kind of weird shit. The ocean loomed ahead of us, pure darkness pierced only by our headlight. No one ever talks about how dark the ocean is. Not a single street lamp or window or car to break up the dark. Just pitch black, in every direction. Well, I could still see the lights from the dock behind us, but it wouldn't be long before they were swallowed up. I'd been on several search and rescue missions before. Thankfully, they'd all ended well. But Bobby was right. They were all storm-related. Lay people not knowing the wrath of the ocean, thinking they can make a little trip into the water for someone's birthday or whatnot when the sky is raging above them and the waves are swelling into mountains. Respect the ocean, and maybe she won't kill you, my mentor had told me. Those words stuck with me, even a decade later. And then, before I knew it, we were approaching the yacht. The lights were on, reflecting in the inky black water. Bobby shifted gears and we pulled up to it slowly, quietly. And that's when I realized how truly massive it was. I'd guess it was a 50 or 60 footer, easily dwarfing our boat. Bobby grabbed the megaphone. US Coast Guard, he said. Can you hear us? Nothing. Kim and I started with the rope. As we worked, preparing to board, I kept looking up at the yacht. But from the outside, nothing appeared amiss. Golden light bled out of the tinted windows, reflecting placidly on the water. I heard low instrumental music playing somewhere. I didn't see any damage to the boat or people in the water. Kim boarded first. I went next. Bobby stayed in the boat, preparing to search the surrounding water. Kim slid open the glass door. After you. I swallowed and stepped inside. The doors opened up into a small but lavishly decorated room. A kitchenette bar area stood to the right, and a dining area with tables and booths sat on the left. That's when I noticed the food. Even though the room was empty, the tables were set with food, as if people had just been there moments before. Glasses of champagne still bubbling, a fillet of salmon a few bites missing, lipstick smeared on a napkin. I pressed my hand to the salmon and my stomach sank. It was still warm. They were just here. I glanced at my watch. 2:51 a.m. They'd sent the SOS not even 20 minutes ago. How did they go from eating and drinking to just nothing? Kim made her way over to me. I checked below deck. No one's there, she said. The food's still warm. Her eyes widened. What the hell? Where did they go? No idea. We made our way towards the stairs, towards the top deck. I doubted we would find them there, but we had to be thorough. The top deck was open to the air. I glanced at the captain's chair, the steering wheel, the little U-shaped sofa behind them. It was empty, nothing out of place. They've got to be in the water, I said grimly. They're not here, that's for sure. I looked out below us, at the inky black water, the ripples glinting in the light. I turned, looking around the boat, into the water. My heart stopped. Where's Bobby? Our boat was still linked with the yacht, but it was empty. Damn it, he must have boarded, Kim snapped, charging for the stairs. He never follows fucking protocol. I always tell him, it's gonna get someone killed, but no. He just has to do things his way. Her rant grew muffled as she descended towards the deck. I followed her. But Bobby wasn't downstairs. He wasn't in the dining area or in either of the bedrooms below deck. My heart pounded in my ears as I grew more and more frantic, checking tiny closets that couldn't possibly fit a person, opening the storage cabbies that held the life jackets. Bobby, where are you? A hand clapped over my mouth. And then something shoved me to the floor. I tried to wrestle away, but then I saw a flash of red curls above me. Kim, she was dragging me under the table, whispering, begging me to keep quiet. Squelch. Both of us froze. My eyes locked on the source of the noise, and I saw 2 rubber boots on the carpet, rivulets of seawater dripping off them. I glanced up. Bobby was standing there in the center of the room, but something was horribly wrong with him. He was soaking wet from head to toe. Seawater sloshed in his boots. Streams of water ran off his sleeves. His skin was pale and bluish, and there was a patch of white, crusty salt along his jawline, almost reaching his eyes. And his eyes, they were pure white, pupilless, blank. Squelch. Bobby took another step, squelch, and another. Kim's nails dug into my arm. We watched as Bobby, no, not Bobby, not anymore, continued walking towards us. I held my breath, shutting my eyes. Please don't let him see us, please. Squelch. 2 rubber boots, right in front of our table. Squelch. He continued deeper into the cabin. I let out the breath I was holding. Kim's grip on my arm loosened. As soon as Bobby's steps sounded on the stairs, Kim whispered to me, "Run." I didn't want to, but then she shoved me, hard, and I was rolling out from under the table. I scrambled up, just in time to see Bobby freeze on the stairs. He slowly turned around, his wide eyes locking on mine. I ran, faster than I'd run in my life. We scrambled out onto the deck, then made our way into the boat as fast as we could. Kim made it first, then she grabbed my hand, pulling me towards safety. Squelch. Bobby's hand locked onto my ankle. Except they weren't just hands. His fingers were jointless, like tentacles, wrapping perfectly around my ankle, covered in fleshy suction cups, and his face, it was rapidly changing. Before my eyes, his salt-encrusted features were morphing, until I saw a woman, then an older man. His flesh squeezing and bloating into its other forms effortlessly, like an octopus squeezing through a tiny hole. But his eyes always stayed the same, white, blank, empty. This is how I die. But then, with a loud pop, I went flying. I crashed into the floor of the boat, pain shooting up my side. By the time I scrambled up, we were several feet away from the yacht, plowing into the ocean. Back home. I was so relieved, so thankful. Whatever that thing was, I'd escaped it. I felt better than I had in years, like all my problems were tiny grains of sand. But now I'm not so sure. Because this morning, when I looked in the mirror, I noticed my face was encrusted with white flakes of salt. My stepdaughter has been taking photos of me while I sleep. I don't know what to do. I'm really freaking out right now. Apparently, my stepdaughter has been taking photos of me while I sleep. I could really use some help. To back up, 6 months ago I married my husband, who we'll call Harry. Harry has a daughter from a previous marriage, 13F, Lily. I don't have kids. Lily and I have never gotten along. However, in the past few months, since we got married, things have gotten much worse. She used to just ignore me. Now she's actively aggressive. I found paint on my favorite heels. She accidentally used one of my favorite t-shirts as a cleaning rag. She even spilled some sort of black ink in our bed during an art project or something like that. Who knows? Harry's talked to her, over and over again, but he hasn't really disciplined her. I keep telling him she needs to see the consequences of her actions, but he's too much of a softie to actually ground her, or take away her phone, etc. She's going through a tough time, he keeps telling me. Please, just let her be for a few months. I tried to ignore it, but then it got worse. Harry was on a 3-day business trip, so I was completely in charge of Lily. And she amped it up to 11. The very first morning, she came down the stairs wearing one of my necklaces. You can wear my jewelry, but need to ask me for permission first, I told her. I don't need to ask permission for anything, she replied, rolling her eyes. Yes, you do. For the next 3 days, your dad's gone, so you need to listen to me. No, I don't. You're not my mom, she shouted. Then she pulled at the necklace and snapped it right in two. I wanted to scream, but instead, I calmly confiscated her phone. Harry would be furious with me, but I'd had enough. When she got home from school, she ran into her room and locked the door, crying. I explained everything to Harry over the phone. I could hear the annoyance in his voice, but he agreed that she needed to learn, and it was okay to keep her phone for a few days. So I thought things were looking up. Then it happened. Later that night, after Lily went to bed, I wanted to take a picture of our cat. but I grabbed Lily's phone by mistake. And after I took the photo, when I went to the camera reel, I found a photo of myself, sleeping. What the fuck? It was a dark, grainy photo. She hadn't used the flash, but I could still make out my face clearly, smooshed against the pillow, eyes closed. I could make out Harry's silhouette in the background behind me, facing the other way, and my book on the nightstand. Before I could stop myself, I flipped to the next photo, and there was another one of me sleeping, taken from a different angle, taken from below. Like she'd been hiding under the bed. Fuck. My thumb raced across the screen as I flipped back through the photos. There were dozens of them, dozens of photos of me sleeping. One taken from inside our bathroom, another taken from inside our fucking closet. I looked at the timestamp on them. They were all taken around 2 a.m. over the course of weeks. I tried to call Harry 3 times, but his phone went right to voicemail. It was after midnight and he had an early meeting tomorrow. He must have turned it off. Come on, I muttered, calling him a 4th time. Jen? I jumped about a foot in the air. Lily was standing behind me, in the semi-darkness. Her wavy hair hung halfway over her face. I backed away. What do you want? I asked, quickly ending the call. I want my phone back. Not tonight, I replied, my heart pounding. Maybe tomorrow. She shrugged. Okay. Then she went back upstairs and into her room. I flipped through the photos one more time. Why in the world would she take these photos? To intimidate me? To scare me? To help her plan of murdering me? There was a much more likely, much less sinister reason. She could have taken them to embarrass me. Maybe she planned to post them all over TikTok or Instagram. Me, sleeping with my mouth open, looking like shit. Really mean of her, but not psychopathic. Still, I locked my door that night anyway. After talking to Harry, I felt better. He thought the same thing. She was taking them to post them online or something, but he was now in total agreement with me. This has gotten out of hand. I'm going to talk to her as soon as I get back. So that was a relief, at least. Can I have my phone back today? Lily asked when I picked her up from school. If you're really, really nice, I'll give it back, okay? I just locked the bedroom door at night. She couldn't take more photos of me. But later that night, I regretted my promise. Lily was a model kid. She thanked me for dinner. She washed her dishes. She even folded the towels sitting on the dryer. And while I didn't want to give the phone back, I wanted to reward her for being so good, so I gave it back. At 2:30 a.m., I woke with a start. As I sat up in the darkness, I realized what woke me up. A clicking, metallic noise. It was coming from the door. Just as I started to get out of bed, the door creaked open, and there was Lily, with a bobby pin in her hands. She'd picked the lock. "What are you doing?" I hissed. Her eyes went wide. Then she ran back down the hallway, towards her room. I jumped out of bed, running after her. Hey, I shouted. "Why are you taking pictures of me? Why?" She stopped. Then, slowly, she turned around. "Dad didn't believe me, so I had to take the pictures." "Didn't believe you? About what?" She didn't say anything. Instead, she handed me her phone. She swiped to the first photo of me, taken in the darkness, grainy and dark. She pointed to the ceiling. "Look." "At what?" "Turn the brightness up." I did, and then I gasped. There was something there, on the ceiling, spindly long shapes crisscrossing each other. Even with the brightness turned way up, it was hard to make out, but there was definitely something there. She flipped to the next photo, and the next. My heart began to pound. It was like watching one of those old flipbook animations. In slow motion, with each swipe, the thing on the ceiling unfolded itself and began reaching for the bed. I stared at the final photo, the one she'd just taken minutes ago. Me sitting up in bed, my face twisted in anger and shock as I cried out for Lily. And behind me, long spindly arms reaching for me. The phone fell out of my hands. Dad didn't believe me. When I showed him the pictures, he didn't see it. He yelled at me and said I was reading too many scary stories. So I've been showing them to my friends. We've been trying to figure out what it is, but we don't know. Lily and I are staying at a friend's place for the time being. We're not going back there. Not until we talk to Harry. Not until we figure this out. Does anyone know what this could be? We've been searching non-stop and haven't found anything promising. All the cells in my body are dead, but I'm still alive. I should have known something was wrong before the exam, but nothing really jumped out at me. I'm 21 years old, in good shape, with no aches or pains or ailments. Perfect health, really. There were the little oddities, though, like the fact that I hadn't needed a haircut in 6 months, or the little scratches and scrapes that never seemed to quite heal. I'd even had problems with bugs. Sometimes I'd wake up itchy only to notice several ants crawling up and down my body. Other times I'd notice patches of dusty dirt clinging to my elbows and knees. But I loved the outdoors and hiked a few times a week, so the bugs and the dirt didn't seem all that strange. So, I never strung everything together until I got a biopsy on a suspicious-looking mole. I knew something was wrong as soon as Dr. Wagner entered the room. After the usual pleasantries, he sat down across from me, a grave look on his face. "We need to discuss the results of your biopsy." The panic began. "It's melanoma. I have cancer." No, I'm only 21. We analyzed the cells, and they did not appear cancerous. However, they were all dead. All the cells that we analyzed. They weren't abnormal in any way, but they also weren't alive. He pushed out a sigh. Necrosis can happen for a number of reasons. Frostbite, for example. But I didn't see any signs of frostbite, or anything else that would cause necrosis of skin tissue. "So what's wrong then?" "We need to do more tests," he replied, which I knew was Dr. E's, for I have no fucking idea. "What do you think it is, though?" "I'll be honest with you, Kate. I just don't know at this point." He offered me a forced smile. "But don't worry. Whatever it is, I don't think it's a big deal." He was wrong. Dr. Wagner removed the entire mole and sent it to the lab. The analysis came back. All the cells were dead. Then he took skin samples from a few other areas on my body. They were all dead too. Usually when cells die, including skin cells, they undergo apoptosis, he told me. As in, they force themselves to implode before they get too old and turn into cancer. But these cells, they're intact. It's just that the cellular processes aren't happening. It's almost like they're frozen in time. What could cause that? A pause, a long pause. "Were you exposed to any radiation or extreme temperatures or anything else like that recently?" I shook my head. "Any recent infections?" I shook my head again. "I'm going to refer you to a rheumatologist. I'd like to rule out autoimmune disease. I also want to refer you to my colleague, Dr. Menendez. He specializes in rare skin conditions." So he had no idea. I stared down at my skin, my arms, my feet. They all looked perfectly normal, healthy even. What is wrong with me? While waiting for my appointments with those doctors, I decided to tell my friend Melanie. Melanie was one of the smartest people I knew, and she happened to be majoring in biology. It was a long shot that she'd have any ideas, but what else was I going to do? Just stare at the wall, waiting for more inconclusive tests. "I think we should take a blood sample," Melanie said, after I told her everything. And then she pulled the drawer open, riffling through various lab supplies. "What, here? Now?" She shrugged. "Yeah, why not?" "Won't you get in trouble?" "Nah, Dr. Thompson is really chill about stuff like this." As it turned out, Dr. Thompson was not really chill about undergrads taking blood samples in her lab, and Melanie almost got kicked out of the school. But that's a whole nother story. She pricked my finger, which really hurt, but she was nice enough to make conversation to distract me. She asked me about my leave from school 6 months ago, and if I was feeling better. "Always take care of yourself," she said to me, giving me a pat on the shoulder. Then she squeezed a drop of blood out onto a slide. She dropped the cover slip on, and the blood instantly expanded into a translucent red pool. Then she slid it into the microscope and worked at the dials. "What are you looking for?" I asked, standing awkwardly behind her. Stuff. "Stuff?" "Just wait." "Okay." I waited patiently as Melanie continued to work at the dials, squinting through the microscope. Then she gasped. What is it?" "See for yourself." I put my eye to the microscope. I don't really know much about biology. I'm a history major, and I hadn't used a microscope since 9th grade. But I could tell what was going on, sort of. The small reddish blobs floating around were probably red blood cells, and the sea of yellowish liquid was plasma. I don't see anything weird. Do you see the white blood cells? I have no idea. She let out a condescending sigh. The clearish ones, I squinted, and then I did see one. It was clear, spotted, and sort of prickly on the edges instead of round. Yeah, I think so. It isn't moving, none of them are. I heard her footsteps on the floor as she began to pace. Usually white blood cells are moving all around, trying to neutralize threats, get rid of infections, that kind of thing. But yours aren't. I think they're dead. I turned away from the microscope, my heart dropping. It makes no sense. If all your white blood cells were dead, you'd be dead. You wouldn't be able to fight off the mildest illness or infection. Even the smallest paper cut would get infected. But you're fine. Alive. Melanie paced back and forth across the lab, her voice growing excited, frenetic. There are so many genetic diseases and disorders we haven't classified yet. So many medical miracles that are still mysteries. What if you're one of them? She sucked in a breath. How did life begin? We still don't know exactly. Can something be alive while its cells are dead? Before we didn't think so, but you're sitting there, alive. She began pacing faster, back and forth, back and forth. A chill crept down my spine. I didn't like the way Melanie seemed so excited, so obsessed. I nearly jumped as she stopped pacing and turned to face me, a huge grin on her face. We'll show Dr. Thompson. That's what we'll do. We can keep taking samples here in the lab. Figure out what's going on. It could change the world, Kate. Don't you see? It could change everything we've ever known about life itself. I got up and, slowly, backed towards the door. I think I'm gonna go. I have a class early tomorrow. No, stay, we have so much to talk about. I grabbed the doorknob and ran out. I expected her to follow me, maybe chase me down, inject me with horse tranquilizer, and start experimenting on me. But she didn't. When I turned around, the hallway was completely empty. Every cell in my body is dead. I've been visiting random doctors, conducting random tests, covering my tracks by using a different doctor for each test. But everything has come up the same. From cheek cells to skin cells to blood, everything in my body is dead. It doesn't make sense. My organs are working. My kidneys are still filtering my blood. My eyes are still able to see. My muscles contract and extend as I move around. Yet no matter what tests I run, biopsies, samples, blood, I don't find a single living cell in my body. I've been avoiding Melanie, but about 3 weeks after she took my blood sample, she showed up at my door. I only answered because I thought she was my grocery delivery. Melanie, I started. I'm in the middle of... She pushed past me into my apartment. I have to tell you something. Please, just sit. She looked upset, no longer excited and fascinated by me, but disturbed. I finally sat down, my heart beginning to pound. I sent your blood sample to a lab, she breathed, finally sitting down across from me. They do really in-depth analysis. And I thought it'd be a good thing, that it would shed light on everything. But her voice wavered. She looked like she was about to cry. What's wrong? They didn't just look at your cells. They looked at the molecular makeup of them, the proteins, the molecules, the atoms, the elements, that sort of thing, she said, her voice shaking again. And it's all wrong, Kate. It's not any of the molecules you'd see in a normal human cell. What? What do you mean? It's dirt, she said, her voice shaking. Dirt and mud and clay. When they ran the mass spectrometer and analyzed the molecular makeup of your cells, it matched the profile of dirt. Not organic molecules you'd find in a human body. What? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever... Have you ever heard of a golem? She asked, her voice a high-pitched screech now. A golem. The word sunk into me. Right, the beings in Jewish folklore made of dirt or clay or other inanimate substance, animated by God or some other being. Anthropomorphic, but never human, animated, but never alive. You're not saying... I shook my head. That's crazy, I can't. 6 months ago, she said, pulling out her phone. You, Kate Benson, died of a seizure. Look at the photo. You can't tell me that doesn't look exactly like you. I looked at the article. All the blood drained out of my face. There was a photo of me, an obituary, in loving memory. My head swam. I felt weak. Every muscle in my body felt like it had seized up. I don't... Someone couldn't bear to lose you, she said, putting her phone back down on the table. And this is the way they decided to cope. I stared down at my hands, at my skin, made of mud, made of clay. Animated, but never alive. My dog was digging in the back garden, and she found a body that looked exactly like mine. "It's raining, Jessie. Come inside," I called. It wasn't the first time I'd caught my Irish setter eagerly scooping up grass and dirt with her paws, but it was certainly the first time she'd succeeded in uncovering something horrifying. "What the fuck?" I screamed. I locked eyes with Jessie's discovery in the ditch, a woman's corpse. My heart cascaded towards the earth, pulling my limp body in tow. And as darkness enveloped my vision, I prayed that it had all been a direful dream. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying in the wet grass, eyeing both the setting sun above and Jessie's slobbery tongue. "I'm awake," I groaned, sitting up and stroking her. "I just took a quick nap. Why am I—" Then it all came back to me, and even in that darkening garden, which backs onto a large forest, I could see what lay in the hole. Me. I felt my chest twist and tighten as I expended all of my energy in an effort to retain consciousness. There was absolutely no denying it. The lifeless body in Jessie's ditch was an identical copy of my own. From the brunette hair to every freckle on her newly rotting face. Everything but the horizontal scar on her forehead. I ran inside whilst Jessie continued to flit between me and the dead woman who looked like me. My dog whimpered in confusion, and I joined her. But with trembling hands, I managed to pick up my phone from the kitchen counter to ring my husband. "Hi, honey," he said. "It's a bit late to be ringing me, isn't it?" "Jack, you need to come home." I shuddered. "What's wrong, Sophia?" he asked. "I'll be home tomorrow." "Please ask your boss to let you come home early," I whispered, refusing to peel my eyes from the patio doors overlooking Jessie's ditch. "What's going on?" Jack asked a little more urgently. Jessie found something in the garden that... I can't explain it over the phone," I cried. I was met with silence, a pause that filled me with inexplicable dread. It must have lasted no more than 2 seconds, but it was enough to raise every hair on my flesh. And then, "You sound really worked up, darling," Jack said. "I'll ask Stuart to let me drive back early." That slowed the immediate alarm bells, but it did not still them. I let Jessie inside and the two of us curled up on the sofa, lights on and patio curtains drawn, though that did nothing to resolve the existential anxiety, as I knew what lay beyond them. 2 hours later, Jack returned from his business trip, and Jessie bounded into the hallway to greet him. "Where's your mummy?" he cooed. "Is she okay?" When my husband entered the lounge, he beamed brightly at me, a soothing smile that would usually put me at ease. "What did our crazy dog find?" he asked. "I think I need to show you, not tell you," I said. I drew the curtains and opened the patio doors onto our pitch-black garden. It must have been around 10 p.m. The world felt unnervingly still. The only sounds were my squelching footsteps in the grass and Jessie's nervous panting. I pulled my phone from my pocket and shone the flashlight into the ditch. But what I saw filled me with as much terror as the initial discovery. "What am I supposed to see?" Jack asked, sighing. The ditch was empty. "No, it was right here," I whispered breathlessly. "I passed out when I saw it." Jack nodded. "Well, that probably explains it. You got confused and fainted. You're prone to doing that." "Yes, but I don't hallucinate things. And the body was still there after I regained consciousness," I huffed. Jack smiled and stroked my face. "You always misremember things. Why don't you head up to bed? I'll pick up a McDonald's for us. I need some food, and you could do with a coffee." I begrudgingly agreed, watching from the bedroom window as Jack hopped in the car and went on a late-night McDonald's trip. But I didn't go to bed. Not after the house's external lights revealed something terrifyingly damning on the bumper of his BMW. Dirt. My heart was pounding as I pieced together what I could. That Jack had clearly slipped into the garden and moved the body to his car before coming inside. Why? Well, I had an inkling as to how I could find the answers about the man I thought I had known for 7 years. With Jessie closely following me, still rattled about her discovery in the garden, I headed to Jack's office. It wasn't a room that he had ever forbidden me from entering. However, one of his desk drawers had a lock, which had always been a point of contention in our relationship. Something that Jack forever dismissed as a security measure against intruders. I didn't know how much time I had before he returned home, so I got to work. I strode through Jack's cluttered workspace, rounding the corner of the desk. Without hesitation, I proceeded to hammer away at the locked drawer with the blunt end of a heavy ornament. Jessie pawed at the drawer inquisitively, barking at the excessive noise. "That's it, girl," I grunted, hammering away. "Let's make it look like an accident. You were all worked up after all." After repeatedly bludgeoning the drawer lock, the handle eventually snapped off the wood and the drawer slid open. Inside, there was nothing but a small piece of paper with the following printed words: "Desktop. Ruin. 940714 at S folder. UEJN 76/43 passwords." Not what I'd expected to find, and I knew I had limited time before Jack returned, but there was no way I could waste the opportunity. Everything that I'd known about my husband was a lie. I threw caution to the wind, turning on the monitor and sitting in his desk chair. The password worked. As the desktop loaded, I wondered what I would find in his folder. What sordid secret was my husband keeping? I didn't want to imagine why there would be another me in a shallow grave. Cloning, time travel, my head was spinning. I searched Windows File Explorer 4's folder, and there was one result: a password-protected folder. And so, I shakily entered the key. Inside the folder, I found neither evidence of some master cloning program, nor evidence that my husband had traveled to the future and murdered me. Yes, I'm aware that my hypotheses were ludicrous, but the truth is far less believable. What did I find? Just one Word document with an obscure title: The Seed Process. I opened it to find diagrams and instructions for some sort of ritual: the seed process. I violently trembled at the crudely drawn diagrams. Depictions of humans being lobotomized. Brains in jars, roots sprouting from the pink matter. I skim-read the list of instructions, and the picture of this seemingly supernatural ritual started to form. Remove the brain, plant the seed, water the brain, and watch limbs grow. Let a new, improved human flourish. Mold your loved ones in your desired image. No more resistance. I started to wail uncontrollably, and Jessie nuzzled my leg to soothe me. I could type more of what I read in that document, but recounting it in greater detail would only make me relive that sickening feeling, a horror that cannot be put into words. Jack has been removing my brain, burying my corpse, and regrowing me from the brain outwards using a seed, whatever the fuck that means. I don't know how many times he's done it. I don't know how many versions of me are buried in the garden, in the forest perhaps. Jessie likes to dig there too, but it explains so much. The blank spots in my memory, the misremembering Jack always mentions, the fact that every time I notice a red flag for my husband, I wake feeling different, refreshed, compliant. Every time he's been chipping a piece of me away, changing me, improving me. That night before he came back to the house, I took Jessie and left without a word. Is he tracking me? I hope not. Whoever me might be. A far stretch from Sophia, that much is certain, and it fills me with a deep sorrow. It also explains the unsalvageable chasm within me. Some repressed, unreachable past version of myself lies at the bottom of that well, I imagine. After all, Jack killed the real Sophia long ago. Who knows how deeply into the forest she's buried.